Tailored Nutrition for Persons with Disabilities, Adapting Diets to Specific Physical and Cognitive Needs by ADNAN, M.A., Monday, 6 July 2026.
Chapter 5. Why blindness may predispose to weight gain. Beyond reduced physical activity, it is often assumed that blindness contributes to weight gain simply because many blind individuals are less physically active than their sighted peers. This explanation contains an important element of truth, but it is incomplete. Human body weight is regulated by a complex interaction of physiology, behavior, environment, psychology, and metabolism. Reduced physical activity is one contributor, but it is seldom the only one. To understand why some blind individuals may be at increased risk of overweight and obesity, we must consider the broader context in which visual impairment affects everyday life. Blindness influences not only mobility but also opportunities for exercise, access to healthy food, sleep quality, social participation, independence, and, in some individuals, circadian biology. Each of these factors can influence energy balance, and together they may substantially alter long-term nutritional requirements. It is important to emphasize from the outset that blindness does not inevitably lead to obesity. Many blind individuals maintain excellent physical fitness, participate in competitive sports, and achieve body weights comparable to or even lower than those of the general population. Blind athletes compete successfully at the highest international levels, demonstrating that visual impairment alone is not a barrier to exceptional physical performance. At the same time, numerous studies conducted in different countries have reported higher rates of overweight and obesity among certain visually impaired populations than among comparable sighted groups. The reasons are multifactorial and vary considerably from one individual to another. Understanding these contributing factors allows healthcare professionals, caregivers, and individuals themselves to develop nutritional strategies that are tailored to functional needs rather than based upon assumptions. The most obvious factor is reduced energy expenditure. Body weight is ultimately governed by the long-term relationship between energy intake and energy expenditure. Whenever energy intake consistently exceeds expenditure, the excess energy is stored primarily as adipose tissue. Conversely, when expenditure exceeds intake, stored energy is mobilized to meet the body's needs, resulting in weight loss. For many blind individuals, opportunities for spontaneous physical activity are reduced. A sighted person may think little of walking to a nearby shop, taking a different route home, exploring a public park, or joining friends for an evening stroll. These activities contribute to daily energy expenditure without being regarded as formal exercise. Collectively, they are often referred to as non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT, and can account for a surprisingly large proportion of total daily energy expenditure. Visual impairment can reduce these incidental movements in subtle but important ways. Navigating unfamiliar environments often requires greater planning and concentration. Concerns about safety, uneven pavements, road crossings, or unfamiliar obstacles may discourage unnecessary journeys. Public transport may be difficult to access independently, while inaccessible infrastructure can further limit mobility. As a consequence, many blind individuals spend more time indoors and engage in fewer spontaneous physical activities than their sighted counterparts. This reduction in movement may appear modest when considered on a single day. However, obesity develops gradually over months and years rather than overnight. A daily reduction of only a few hundred kilocalories in energy expenditure can, if not accompanied by a corresponding reduction in food intake, lead to a progressive increase in body fat over time. The relationship between physical activity and body weight is therefore cumulative rather than immediate. An individual does not become obese after a week of inactivity, nor does a single day of vigorous exercise eliminate years of excess body fat. Long-term energy balance reflects countless small decisions and behavioral patterns repeated consistently over many years. Physical activity contributes to metabolic health in ways that extend beyond the number of kilocalories expended during exercise. Regular movement helps preserve skeletal muscle mass, improves insulin sensitivity, enhances cardiovascular fitness, supports bone health, and contributes to psychological well-being. Exercise also influences appetite regulation, with physically active individuals often demonstrating more effective matching of food intake to energy expenditure than sedentary individuals. Loss of muscle mass deserves particular attention. Skeletal muscle is one of the body's most metabolically active tissues. Even at rest, muscle requires energy to maintain its structure and function. Individuals with greater muscle mass generally have higher resting energy expenditure than those with less muscle, although the difference is often smaller than popular fitness literature suggests. When physical activity declines over prolonged periods, muscle mass may gradually decrease through a process known as disuse atrophy. As muscle mass declines, resting energy expenditure also falls modestly. Although these reductions are not dramatic, they contribute to a lower overall requirement for daily kilocalories. If dietary intake remains unchanged despite declining energy expenditure, a chronic positive energy balance may gradually develop. This process illustrates why nutritional recommendations should always be individualized. Two adults of identical height, weight, and age may require substantially different energy intakes depending upon their muscle mass, mobility, occupation, and level of physical activity. Blindness itself does not determine energy requirements, but the functional consequences of visual impairment often influence them. Environmental barriers also deserve careful consideration. The physical environment in which a person lives can either encourage or discourage physical activity. Safe pavements, accessible public transport, audible pedestrian crossings, well-designed recreational facilities, and supportive community programs enable greater independence. Conversely, poor infrastructure, heavy traffic, inaccessible buildings, and limited public transport can discourage movement even among highly motivated individuals. These environmental influences are frequently overlooked when discussing obesity. It is tempting to attribute body weight solely to personal responsibility, but such an explanation ignores the practical realities faced by many persons with disabilities. Health behaviors occur within social and physical environments that either facilitate or constrain individual choices. Improving accessibility, therefore, has important implications not only for social inclusion but also for public health. Social factors may also influence physical activity. Some blind individuals experience isolation because opportunities for organized recreation, sports, or outdoor activities are limited. Others may become increasingly dependent upon family members or caregivers for transportation, making spontaneous participation in exercise more difficult. These barriers are rarely absolute, but together they may reduce the frequency and duration of regular physical activity. Psychological factors should not be overlooked. Confidence plays an important role in determining whether individuals participate in physical activities. Fear of falling, concerns about navigating unfamiliar environments, previous negative experiences, or anxiety about public perception may discourage some people from engaging in outdoor exercise. These concerns are understandable and should never be dismissed. Instead, they highlight the importance of creating supportive environments that promote confidence, independence, and safe participation in physical activity. Fortunately, numerous forms of exercise are both practical and effective for blind individuals. Guided walking, tandem cycling, swimming, resistance training, rowing, stationary cycling, goalball, adapted martial arts, and many forms of strength training can all provide substantial health benefits. Advances in accessible fitness technology and inclusive sports programs continue to expand these opportunities around the world. The objective is not necessarily to achieve the same activity patterns as sighted individuals, but to identify sustainable forms of movement that fit each person's abilities, preferences, and circumstances. Even relatively modest increases in daily physical activity can improve cardiovascular health, preserve muscle mass, enhance insulin sensitivity, and support long-term weight management. Physical activity, however, represents only one piece of a much larger physiological picture. As discussed in the previous chapter, blindness may also influence circadian biology in certain individuals, particularly those without functional light perception. Sleep disruption, altered hormonal rhythms, and changes in metabolic timing may interact with reduced physical activity in complex ways that researchers are only beginning to understand. Equally important are the social and behavioral aspects of eating itself. Food choices are influenced not only by hunger, but also by convenience, accessibility, affordability, cultural practices, emotional well-being, and the availability of healthy options. For individuals who face challenges in shopping, cooking, or preparing meals independently, these practical considerations may significantly affect dietary quality. In the sections that follow, we shall examine these additional influences in greater detail, beginning with the role of sleep, circadian disruption, and hormonal regulation, before considering the practical challenges of food access, meal preparation, and long-term nutritional management for persons living with blindness. Sleep, circadian rhythms, and hormonal regulation. Physical activity is only one side of the energy balance equation. Equally important, although often less visible, are the physiological processes that regulate hunger, satiety, metabolism, and the storage of energy. These processes continue throughout the day and night, whether we are awake or asleep, and many are governed by the body's circadian timing system. Over the past 2 decades, sleep has emerged as one of the most significant determinants of metabolic health. Once regarded simply as a period of rest, sleep is now recognized as an active physiological state during which the brain and body perform numerous essential functions. Memory is consolidated, damaged tissues undergo repair, immune function is regulated, hormones are released in carefully timed sequences, and energy metabolism is recalibrated for the following day. When sleep becomes chronically disrupted, these processes may no longer operate with the same efficiency. The consequences extend well beyond daytime fatigue. Persistent sleep disturbance has been associated with increased appetite, impaired glucose regulation, reduced insulin sensitivity, elevated blood pressure, diminished cognitive performance, and an increased risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes. Although these associations do not prove that poor sleep directly causes these conditions, the consistency of the evidence suggests that healthy sleep is an important component of long-term metabolic health. For some blind individuals, maintaining stable sleep patterns presents unique challenges. As discussed in the previous chapter, the body's master circadian clock relies upon environmental light to remain synchronized with the 24-hour day. When functional light perception is absent, this synchronization may become impaired, allowing the internal clock to drift progressively later. In individuals with non-24-hour sleep-wake disorder, sleep gradually shifts through the day and night, resulting in recurring periods of insomnia, excessive daytime sleepiness, and chronic fatigue. Even among blind individuals who do not develop non-24, sleep quality may be affected by irregular daily routines, reduced exposure to natural daylight, medication use, anxiety, depression, chronic pain, or other medical conditions. Consequently, sleep should always be considered as one factor among many when assessing nutritional needs and body weight. One reason that sleep influences body weight is that it affects appetite regulation. Hunger is not determined solely by whether the stomach is empty. Rather, appetite arises from continuous communication between the digestive system, adipose tissue, the pancreas, and several regions of the brain, particularly the hypothalamus. This communication is mediated by a complex network of hormones and neural signals that help balance energy intake with the body's requirements. Among the best-known appetite-regulating hormones are ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin is produced primarily by the stomach and generally rises before meals, stimulating hunger and encouraging food intake. After eating, ghrelin concentrations decline, contributing to the sensation that hunger has been satisfied. Leptin performs almost the opposite function. Produced mainly by adipose tissue, it informs the brain about the body's energy reserves and contributes to feelings of satiety. Under normal physiological conditions, increasing body fat leads to increased leptin production, signaling that sufficient energy has been stored. Unfortunately, obesity is often accompanied by leptin resistance, in which the brain becomes less responsive to this signal. As a result, appetite may remain elevated despite abundant energy stores. Sleep deprivation appears to influence both of these hormonal systems. Numerous experimental studies have shown that restricting sleep can alter the balance between hunger and satiety signals, often increasing subjective appetite and encouraging greater food intake. Although the precise hormonal responses vary between individuals and between studies, the overall pattern indicates that inadequate sleep makes appetite regulation less effective. The foods people choose after poor sleep also tend to change. Individuals experiencing chronic fatigue frequently report stronger cravings for foods that are rich in refined carbohydrates, saturated fat, or added sugar. These foods provide rapid sensory reward and may temporarily improve alertness, but they are often energy-dense and comparatively low in dietary fiber. When consumed regularly in excess of energy requirements, they contribute to gradual weight gain. Sleep loss may therefore influence both sides of the energy balance equation. It can increase energy intake through altered appetite while simultaneously reducing energy expenditure by decreasing motivation for physical activity. Fatigue often makes exercise less appealing, encourages prolonged sitting, and reduces spontaneous movement throughout the day. These behavioral effects may be just as important as the underlying hormonal changes. Another important consideration is the timing of food intake. Healthy circadian rhythms normally encourage eating during the biologically active phase of the day and fasting during the biological night. When sleep schedules become irregular, meal timing often becomes irregular as well. Late-night eating, skipped breakfasts, or inconsistent meal schedules may disrupt communication between the master circadian clock and the peripheral clocks located in the liver, pancreas, skeletal muscle, and adipose tissue. Research into chrononutrition suggests that these timing disturbances may influence metabolic efficiency. The body's ability to regulate blood glucose, respond to insulin, and process nutrients appears to vary across the day. Consequently, identical meals consumed at different times may produce different metabolic responses. Although this field remains under active investigation, it reinforces the broader principle that nutrition is influenced not only by food composition but also by biological timing. For blind individuals experiencing circadian disruption, these findings may have practical significance. Irregular sleep patterns often lead to irregular meal patterns. A person who remains awake throughout the night because of circadian misalignment is more likely to consume food during hours when the body would ordinarily be resting. Whether this directly promotes long-term weight gain remains uncertain, but it provides another biologically plausible mechanism through which circadian disruption could influence metabolism. Stress may further complicate this picture. Living with a disability often involves practical challenges that extend beyond the disability itself. Difficulties accessing transportation, navigating unfamiliar environments, securing employment, or obtaining appropriate healthcare may contribute to chronic psychological stress. Stress does not affect everyone in the same way. Some individuals lose their appetite during stressful periods, whereas others experience emotional eating characterized by increased consumption of highly palatable foods. The hormone cortisol provides one possible link between stress and metabolism. Under normal circumstances, cortisol follows a healthy circadian rhythm, rising before waking and gradually declining throughout the day. Chronic psychological stress, however, may alter cortisol regulation in ways that influence appetite, glucose metabolism, and fat distribution. The relationship is complex and remains an active area of research, but prolonged disturbances in cortisol secretion have been associated with increased accumulation of visceral fat in some individuals. It is therefore unlikely that any single hormone explains obesity in blind populations. Rather, body weight emerges from the interaction of numerous physiological systems operating simultaneously. Sleep quality, circadian timing, appetite regulation, stress hormones, physical activity, muscle mass, and dietary habits all influence energy balance. These factors interact continuously, often reinforcing one another over many months or years. An important implication of this understanding is that successful weight management requires more than simply reducing food intake. A person who sleeps poorly, experiences chronic fatigue, and struggles with circadian disruption may find it considerably more difficult to maintain healthy eating habits than someone enjoying stable sleep and regular daily routines. Addressing sleep quality may therefore enhance the effectiveness of nutritional interventions, rather than serving as an unrelated aspect of healthcare. This perspective reflects a broader shift within modern medicine. Increasingly, obesity is understood not as a failure of willpower, but as a multifactorial condition influenced by biology, behavior, psychology, environment, and society. Personal responsibility remains important, but it operates within physiological systems that can either facilitate or hinder healthy choices. For blind individuals, this means that nutritional advice should extend beyond kilocalorie targets and meal plans. It should also consider sleep habits, daily routines, exposure to natural light where appropriate, opportunities for physical activity, emotional well-being, and the practical realities of independent living. Such an approach is both more scientific and more compassionate, because it acknowledges the complexity of human physiology, rather than reducing body weight to a simple matter of personal discipline. The next section turns from physiology to the practical challenges of obtaining, preparing, and selecting food. While metabolism determines how the body uses nutrients, everyday decisions about shopping, cooking, and eating ultimately determine which nutrients enter the body in the first place. These practical considerations often have as much influence on long-term health as the physiological mechanisms discussed thus far. Food accessibility, independence, and everyday nutrition. Physiology alone does not determine what people eat. Even the most carefully designed nutritional recommendations are of limited value if healthy food is difficult to obtain, prepare, or afford. For many persons living with blindness, everyday practical challenges exert a profound influence on dietary habits. These challenges rarely receive the same attention as metabolism or hormone regulation, yet they often shape food choices more directly than any biochemical process. Most sighted individuals perform countless food-related tasks without conscious thought. They compare prices on supermarket shelves, read ingredient lists, check expiry dates, identify fresh produce, measure cooking ingredients, monitor food while it cooks, and recognize subtle visual signs that indicate whether food is properly prepared. Visual information guides almost every stage of meal planning and food preparation. Blind individuals accomplish these same tasks using different strategies. Many become exceptionally skilled at organizing kitchens, labeling foods, using tactile markers, employing talking kitchen scales, and relying on auditory or tactile cues during cooking. Modern assistive technology, including smartphone applications capable of reading labels or identifying products through artificial intelligence, has greatly increased independence for many people with visual impairment. Nevertheless, these adaptations often require additional time, planning, and effort. A shopping trip that takes a sighted person 30 minutes may require considerably longer when assistance is needed to locate products or travel independently. Preparing meals from fresh ingredients may also demand greater concentration and organization. As a result, convenience sometimes becomes a more important consideration than nutritional quality. Convenience foods are not inherently unhealthy. Frozen vegetables, canned legumes without excessive added salt, frozen fruit, plain rolled oats, and many other minimally processed foods provide excellent nutritional value while reducing preparation time. The problem arises when convenience becomes synonymous with highly processed foods rich in refined starches, added sugars, saturated fats, and excessive sodium. These products are often heavily marketed, inexpensive, widely available, and designed to be highly palatable. Such foods typically possess a high energy density, meaning that they provide a large number of kilocalories in a relatively small volume. They are easy to consume quickly, often contain relatively little dietary fiber, and may not produce the same degree of satiety as whole foods with a higher water and fiber content. Regular consumption of energy-dense foods, particularly in the absence of corresponding physical activity, may gradually contribute to positive energy balance and weight gain. Another practical consideration is meal preparation. Individuals who feel uncertain about cooking safely may rely heavily on ready-made meals or takeaway food. While these options provide convenience, they frequently contain larger portion sizes than necessary, together with higher quantities of refined oils, added sugars, and sodium than meals prepared from whole ingredients at home. This does not imply that blind individuals are incapable of cooking independently. On the contrary, many prepare nutritious meals every day using adaptive techniques that are both safe and efficient. However, opportunities to develop these skills vary considerably. Access to rehabilitation services, mobility training, independent living programs, family support, and adaptive equipment differs widely between countries and even between communities within the same country. Education, therefore, plays a crucial role. Learning how to prepare simple, nutritious meals safely can increase independence while simultaneously improving dietary quality. Skills such as planning weekly meals, organizing kitchen workspaces, storing food systematically, and using adaptive cooking equipment may have long-term health benefits that extend well beyond nutrition alone. Family members and caregivers also influence dietary habits. In many households, meals are prepared by relatives who understandably wish to provide enjoyable and satisfying food. Unfortunately, generosity is sometimes expressed through large portion sizes or frequent servings of energy-dense foods. Cultural traditions may reinforce the belief that abundant food reflects good care and hospitality. These practices are usually motivated by kindness rather than neglect, yet they may inadvertently contribute to gradual weight gain when energy intake consistently exceeds energy expenditure. Caregivers therefore benefit from understanding that nutritional needs differ between individuals, and that appropriate portion sizes should reflect functional activity rather than assumptions based upon age or appearance. Social eating introduces additional considerations. Meals are rarely consumed solely to satisfy physiological hunger. They are also opportunities for family interaction, celebration, friendship, and cultural expression. Declining food offered by relatives or friends may be considered impolite in many cultures, making portion control socially challenging. Blind individuals are no different from anyone else in this respect. Emotional, cultural, and social influences affect eating behavior regardless of disability. Economic circumstances also deserve attention. Healthy diets are often perceived as more expensive than less nutritious alternatives. Although this perception is not always accurate, financial constraints undoubtedly influence food purchasing decisions. Fresh produce, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds can be remarkably economical when purchased wisely, yet access to these foods varies considerably depending upon location, transportation, and local food availability. For individuals living on limited incomes, nutritional advice must therefore be practical as well as scientifically sound. Recommending expensive specialty foods that are unavailable locally serves little purpose. Instead, dietary guidance should emphasize affordable, widely available whole foods that provide high nutritional value relative to their cost. Technology is beginning to transform food accessibility for blind individuals. Smartphone applications can identify packaged foods, read ingredient labels aloud, estimate nutritional information, and assist with shopping. Voice-controlled digital assistants can help create shopping lists, locate recipes, convert measurements, and provide cooking instructions hands-free. Artificial intelligence is rapidly expanding these capabilities, making independent meal preparation increasingly accessible. These technological advances should not be viewed as luxuries, but as important tools for promoting health and independence. Greater independence in food selection and preparation allows individuals to exercise more control over dietary quality, portion sizes, and meal timing, all of which contribute to long-term metabolic health. Another factor influencing dietary habits is routine. Many people consume similar meals at similar times each day because routines simplify decision-making. Stable routines may be particularly valuable for individuals with visual impairment because they reduce the cognitive demands associated with planning meals and shopping. Regular meal patterns may also complement healthy circadian rhythms by reinforcing predictable cycles of feeding and fasting. Conversely, irregular routines can encourage unplanned eating. Skipping meals because food preparation seems inconvenient may lead to excessive hunger later in the day, increasing the likelihood of consuming large portions or choosing highly processed convenience foods. Establishing regular meal times and maintaining a consistent supply of healthy ingredients at home can reduce these difficulties. One of the most important principles of nutritional counseling is that recommendations must be achievable. Advising someone to prepare elaborate meals from numerous fresh ingredients every day may be unrealistic if they have limited mobility, restricted access to shops, or little experience with cooking independently. Small, sustainable improvements are often more effective than ambitious plans that prove impossible to maintain. For example, replacing sugar-sweetened beverages with water, adding an extra serving of vegetables to one meal each day, choosing whole grain products instead of refined grains, or incorporating legumes into meals several times each week may produce meaningful health benefits when maintained consistently over many years. Lasting behavioral change is usually gradual rather than dramatic. Healthcare professionals should therefore view blind individuals as partners in nutritional decision-making rather than passive recipients of advice. Each person's circumstances, abilities, preferences, financial resources, cultural background, and living arrangements are unique. Effective dietary planning begins by understanding these realities before recommending specific nutritional strategies. The overarching objective is independence wherever possible. Independence does not necessarily mean performing every task without assistance. Rather, it means having the knowledge, skills, confidence, and support necessary to make informed decisions about food and health. Whether assistance comes from family members, caregivers, rehabilitation specialists, or assistive technology is less important than ensuring that the individual remains actively involved in those decisions. When practical barriers to healthy eating are reduced, nutritional advice becomes far easier to implement. At that point, attention can shift from simply obtaining food to selecting foods that promote satiety, metabolic health, and appropriate energy intake. As we shall see in the next section, understanding why some foods satisfy hunger more effectively than others is fundamental to long-term weight management, particularly for individuals whose daily energy requirements may be lower than those of the general population. Clinical observations, evidence, and a personalized approach. One of the challenges in discussing obesity among persons with blindness is avoiding two equally misleading conclusions. The first is to assume that blindness has no influence whatsoever on body weight. The second is to assume that visual impairment inevitably results in obesity. Neither position is supported by the available evidence. The reality is considerably more nuanced. Blind individuals represent an extraordinarily diverse population. Some are physically active and metabolically healthy throughout their lives, while others struggle with overweight and obesity for many of the same reasons as the general population. Still others face additional physiological and environmental challenges that increase their susceptibility to weight gain. Any meaningful discussion must therefore acknowledge this diversity rather than treating blindness as a single, uniform condition. Throughout my years of interacting with members of the Society of the Blind in Malaysia, I observed that a noticeable proportion appeared to be overweight or obese. This observation first prompted me to consider whether conventional nutritional advice adequately reflects the realities faced by persons with visual impairment. Was reduced physical activity alone sufficient to explain what I was seeing, or were other physiological and environmental factors contributing to the pattern? Such observations are valuable because they generate scientific questions, but they must not be confused with scientific evidence. Personal experience, regardless of how compelling it may appear, cannot establish prevalence, causation, or risk. Only carefully designed epidemiological studies involving representative populations can answer those questions with confidence. This distinction is fundamental to good scientific practice. Many important discoveries have begun with thoughtful clinical observations. Physicians notice unexpected patterns among their patients. Researchers observe anomalies that existing theories cannot easily explain. These observations become hypotheses that are subsequently tested through systematic investigation. Until such testing has been completed, however, they remain hypotheses rather than established conclusions. Fortunately, there is now a growing body of research examining obesity and metabolic health in visually impaired populations. Although the findings vary between countries and study populations, several investigations have reported higher rates of overweight and obesity among some groups of blind or visually impaired adults compared with the general population. These studies do not imply that blindness itself is the direct cause. Instead, they suggest that the combination of reduced physical activity, environmental barriers, sleep disturbances, socioeconomic factors, medication use, and other influences may increase the likelihood of positive energy balance over many years. The precise contribution of each factor remains difficult to determine because they rarely occur in isolation. A person experiencing limited mobility may also have disrupted sleep. Someone who sleeps poorly may be less motivated to exercise. Reduced physical activity may gradually lower muscle mass, leading to a modest reduction in resting energy expenditure. At the same time, limited opportunities for shopping or meal preparation may encourage greater reliance on convenience foods. Each factor reinforces the others, making it difficult to isolate a single primary cause. This interaction illustrates why obesity should be understood as a multifactorial condition. Human physiology is extraordinarily complex, and body weight reflects the cumulative effects of genetics, development, environment, psychology, behavior, endocrine regulation, physical activity, sleep, medication, and nutrition. No single explanation is sufficient for every individual. From a practical perspective, however, the exact contribution of each mechanism is often less important than recognizing that overall energy requirements may differ substantially between individuals. If daily energy expenditure decreases because of reduced physical activity or diminished muscle mass, maintaining the same dietary intake that was appropriate under more active circumstances will eventually lead to gradual weight gain. The laws of energy balance remain unchanged regardless of the underlying reason for the reduction in expenditure. This principle explains why nutritional recommendations should always be individualized. Public health guidelines are designed for populations rather than specific individuals. They provide useful starting points, but account for the enormous variation in physiology that exists between people. Two adults of the same age, sex, height, and body weight may differ considerably in their daily kilocalorie requirements because of differences in muscle mass, occupation, mobility, medication, sleep quality, and habitual physical activity. For persons with blindness, these differences may be particularly important. Some individuals walk several kilometers each day with the assistance of a long cane or guide dog, participate in regular exercise programs, and maintain substantial muscle mass. Others may spend much of the day seated because of additional disabilities, inaccessible environments, or chronic medical conditions. Although both individuals are blind, their nutritional requirements are unlikely to be identical. Healthcare professionals should therefore resist the temptation to rely upon general assumptions. Instead, nutritional assessment should consider functional capacity, habitual physical activity, body composition, medical history, current body weight, waist circumference, metabolic health, and personal goals. Dietary advice should be based upon these measurable factors rather than disability labels alone. Regular monitoring is particularly valuable because body weight changes gradually. Small increases may go unnoticed until they become substantial. Periodic measurement of body weight and waist circumference allows adjustments to dietary intake or physical activity before obesity becomes firmly established. Similarly, routine monitoring of blood pressure, blood glucose, and blood lipid concentrations provides objective indicators of metabolic health that may reveal problems before symptoms develop. An equally important principle is to avoid unnecessary dietary restriction. Lower energy requirements do not imply lower nutritional requirements. The body's need for vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, essential amino acids, and other micronutrients remains largely unchanged even when total kilocalorie requirements decrease. Consequently, individuals with lower energy needs should place even greater emphasis on consuming nutrient-dense foods rather than energy-dense foods. This distinction lies at the heart of effective nutritional planning. Every kilocalorie should ideally provide the greatest possible nutritional benefit. Foods rich in dietary fiber, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, and other beneficial compounds become especially valuable because they deliver substantial nutritional value without excessive energy intake. Conversely, foods that contribute large numbers of kilocalories while providing relatively few essential nutrients become proportionally less suitable when daily energy requirements are reduced. The objective is therefore not deprivation, but optimization. Good nutrition should enhance health, preserve independence, maintain muscle mass, support healthy aging, and improve quality of life. It should also remain enjoyable, culturally appropriate, affordable, and sustainable over the long term. Extreme diets rarely achieve these goals because they are difficult to maintain and often encourage cycles of restriction followed by overeating. A more effective approach is to develop lifelong eating habits that reflect each individual's physiology and lifestyle. Such habits need not be complicated. Consistent meal patterns, appropriate portion sizes, abundant whole plant foods, adequate hydration, regular physical activity, and sufficient sleep provide a strong foundation for long-term metabolic health. These principles apply to virtually everyone, but their implementation should always be adapted to the individual's functional abilities and daily circumstances. The central message emerging from this chapter is therefore one of individualization rather than generalization. Blindness may increase the likelihood of weight gain in some individuals through a combination of reduced physical activity, environmental barriers, sleep disturbance, circadian disruption, and practical challenges related to food access and preparation. In others, these factors may be minimal or absent. Effective nutritional care begins by recognizing these differences rather than assuming that all persons with blindness have identical needs. In the next chapter, we move from understanding the causes of weight gain to developing practical strategies for preventing it. We shall examine how individual energy requirements can be estimated, why universal kilocalorie recommendations are often misleading, and how personalized nutritional planning can support healthy body weight while ensuring adequate intake of essential nutrients.
The author has placed this work in the public domain. It may be freely imported, exported, shared, distributed, edited, modified, or reformatted without explicit consent from the author. As a visually impaired person, the author asserts his rights under the Marrakesh Treaty to facilitate access to published works for persons who are blind, visually impaired, or otherwise print disabled. 2013, WIPO.INT.
Early bird registration for my September 5th event is valid until July 31st for a minimum donation of 150 ringgit. Made before July 31st, you can attend my September 5th event. All proceeds for all your donations will be used not just for your meal for the day, but also for my various eye treatments and sponsoring some persons with disability to attend the event. From July onwards, it will be 150 ringgit until the end of July. Then in August, it will go up to 200 ringgit. Thank you.
How to attend AZLAN ADNAN's Meet the Author Luncheon at the Hungry Tapir, 135 Petaling Street, Kuala Lumpur. Short walking distance from the Pasar Seni MRT LRT station from 12:30 hours, Saturday, 5th September 2026.
Step 1. Download all my 30+ books on nutrition for free from Z Library using this URL. However, there is a limit of 10 downloads a day from Z Library. The workaround is to download them, and 2,250+ others, from my Optimal Health Community Telegram broadcast channel at EPUB Electronic Publishing. All my free ebooks are published in .EPUB electronic publishing format. If you are still living in the dark ages and only know .PDF portable document format and never heard of .EPUB, don't worry. You are about to have a mind-blowing experiential learning journey. If you use an Apple device, .EPUB files open in the Books app. If you are an Android user, use Universal Book Reader or a similar app. If you need further instructions on how to read .EPUB documents, just ask your favorite AI app to teach you. If you have never used an AI app before, start with Grok, Gemini, or ChatGPT. Then move on to DeepSeek, Claude, or Kling later.
Step 2. I have put all my books in the public domain, and you may share them freely. In fact, I strongly implore you to do so. Viralize them, make sure they reach every person who needs the knowledge contained in them. In Malaysia, the most recent data from the National Health and Morbidity Survey 2023 shows that 21.8% of adults are obese and 32.6% are overweight. This means the total combined rate is 54.4% of adults. Scary huge percentages of Malaysians are diabetic or suffer from other non-communicable diseases, NCDs. To be specific, in Malaysia, about 15.5% of adults have chronic kidney disease, CKD, up from 9.1% in 2011. Around 21.4% of adults aged 30 and above are at high risk of cardiovascular disease, CVD. Among older adults, about 8.5% have dementia, equating to roughly 260,000 people as of 2022. A nation is only as strong as its human capital. How strong can a nation be if more than half its population is fat, sick, and nearly dead? Of what good can you be to your family if you are fat, sick, and nearly dead? You owe it to yourself to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be.
Step 3. Read the books, follow whatever advice that makes sense to you. If something doesn't make sense to you, or causes cognitive dissonance, you can ask me clarifying questions on the 5th of September. Also, be prepared to report on the 5th of September what improvements in your health you have noticed. So far, one person has seen her total cholesterol level drop from always above 5 to 4.6. Another has resolved a chronic constipation issue. I have written 2 books on human stool classification and stool analysis. Another person who wakes up every morning with a white layer of mucus on her tongue for more than half her life now wakes up with a clear tongue. Step 4. Make the minimum donation by the required dates. The longer you prevaricate, the higher the minimum donation gets. Minimum donation per pax: 100 ringgit for donations received by June 30th, 150 ringgit for donations received by July 31st, 200 ringgit for donations received by August 31st, 500 ringgit for donations received by the 5th of September and for walk-ins. Places are limited. However, I do not wish to deprive anyone. If enough people register, we can take over the whole restaurant, so make your donations early to reserve your place. Purpose: your donations will go towards sponsoring persons with disability, PWD, to attend the event and also towards my various ongoing eye treatments. Sponsorship: if you run a business and wish to promote your business, you can sponsor door gifts, gift vouchers, or even cash.
Vegivore Food Therapy proudly presents Ask Me Anything on Nutrition.
Your attention, please. Vegivore Food Therapy proudly organizes a unique, transformative event on Saturday, 5 September 2026, starting at 12:30 hours at the Hungry Tapir, 135 Jalan Petaling Street, 50000, Kuala Lumpur. For a minimum donation of 100 ringgit, attendees will secure a seat at this rare opportunity. AZLAN ADNAN, MA, polymath and autodidact, will guide the session. A writer and researcher in nutrition science, AZLAN has authored dozens of books on plant-based bioactives, antioxidants, and the chemistry of whole foods. In this session, he will lead a dynamic Ask Me Anything on Nutrition session. All 30 of his nutrition books are in the public domain and are downloadable at the link below. Attendees must read these books in advance and come prepared with their questions. This is a singular chance to engage with one of today's leading independent nutrition thinkers. Don't miss it. A healthy, whole food, plant-based lunch with the menu curated by AZLAN ADNAN will be served. No need to write your name in the reference of the bank transfer, as it will automatically be displayed, but include your phone number in case we need to contact you for any last-minute changes.
We will also celebrate AZLAN's 68th birthday.
Some of you have been wondering why a YouTube channel devoted to green political philosophy and ideology would address health issues. The stark facts are these. Data from the National Health and Morbidity Survey in Malaysia 2023 shows that 54.4% of adults are either overweight or obese, with 32.6% classified as overweight and 21.8% as obese. Abdominal obesity, per Roy, was also reported at 54.5%. Compared to 2011, the combined prevalence of overweight and obesity has increased from 44.5% to 54.4%. According to the same survey, 15.6% of adults in Malaysia have been diagnosed with diabetes, kencing manis. Additionally, about 21.4% of Malaysian adults aged 30 and above have a high 10-year calculated risk of developing cardiovascular disease, CVD, sakit jantung. In Malaysia, precise prevalence data for diagnosed CVD is somewhat limited. Data from 2010 to 2021 indicated that 16.6% of all registered deaths were due to CVD. A 2015 survey found that 14.1% of working-age adults had diabetes, 24.5% had hypertension, and 45.9% had high cholesterol. The World Heart Federation also noted in 2022 that around 11% of deaths in Malaysia are linked to CVD. In 2011, the prevalence of chronic kidney disease, CKD, sakit buah pinggang, was 9.07%. A nationwide study in Malaysia in 2018 estimated that 15.48% of adults, over 5 million people, have CKD. It really is alarming. These numbers are striking, especially when you consider how rapidly they have grown over just a decade. It is a massive public health challenge. In light of these statistics, the implications for nation building and capacity building are stark. What value does a nation have if more than half its population are fat, sick, and nearly dead?
Are you fat, sick, and nearly dead? Well, according to the data from the latest survey, 54.8% of Malaysians are. In fact, the statistics are quite scary. So if you or any of your loved ones are in this high-risk category, don't despair. I have good news for you. I've written more than 30 books on nutrition, and you can download them all for free. The only limitation is you can only download 10 books per day from Z Library. However, you can download almost 2,500 books from my Telegram broadcast channel. I'll give you the link shortly. And if you're overwhelmed by 30 books, in fact, these 30 books, I've designed them so that they could cover the undergraduate syllabus of a nutrition or dietetics course, or the nutritional needs for a medical student. Anyway, if you think you're overwhelmed, you don't know where to start with this book. And then as you progress, you can, go deeper, take a deep dive into the other books. And if you want to meet me to discuss what you've read in the books, you have a chance in September to do so. However, there are 5 places already been taken up, and there are limited seats, so the sooner you register, the sooner you'll reserve a place for yourself. Attendance is by donation, so details are in the following video.
It is for this reason that I've written more than 30 books on health and nutrition and put them all in the public domain. Why nutrition? Because nutrition is the single biggest factor and lowest hanging fruit we can address to improve our health. 80% of our health is influenced by nutrition, which is our biggest exposure to the environment. The others are genetics, at 5%. But even with genetics, the emerging science of epigenetics shows how we can switch off bad genes and switch on good ones with nutrition. The remaining 15% relate to other lifestyle factors, including sleep, meditation, relationships, air quality, and so forth.
Important note on event registration fees. Super Early Bird. Donation received by the 30th of June 2026. Minimum donation of 100 ringgits. Early Bird. Donation received between the 1st and the 31st of July 2026. Minimum donation of 150 ringgits. Normal registration. Donation received between the 1st and the 31st of August 2026. Minimum donation of 200 ringgits. Late registration. Donation received between 1st to 5th September 2026. Minimum donation of 500 ringgits. All proceeds after deducting third-party costs will go towards AZLAN ADNAN's various ongoing eye treatments to hopefully reverse or at least arrest his macular degeneration, cataracts, photophobia, mydriasis, dry eyes, and etc. This is mission critical as, if his vision fails, he'll no longer be able to produce, edit, or upload videos. Your voluntary contributions and donations are a critical success factor. As such, your generosity, empathy, compassion, and kindness are well and truly appreciated. We thank you in advance for your invaluable help and assistance in making this event a resounding success.
About the author. AZLAN ADNAN, M.A., is a writer and independent researcher whose work focuses on nutrition science, food systems, and the biological foundations of human health. His writing examines how natural foods contain complex compounds that interact with human physiology in ways that may support long-term well-being. He has a particular interest in plant-based bioactive compounds such as polyphenols, carotenoids, flavonoids, and other phytochemicals found in fruits, vegetables, herbs, spices, algae, and fungi. His research explores how these compounds function in plants and how they may influence human nutrition when consumed as part of a balanced diet. AZLAN approaches nutrition from a multidisciplinary perspective, drawing on biochemistry, plant biology, and public health nutrition. His work aims to translate complex scientific concepts into clear explanations so that readers can better understand the nutritional value of everyday foods. He is the author of several books examining natural sources of antioxidants and other dietary compounds. Author of the Antioxidant series, Antioxidants in Herbs and Spices, Antioxidants in Algae, Microalgae, and Fungi, Antioxidants in Fruits and Vegetables, Antioxidants in Nuts and Seeds, Antioxidants in Berries. Author of the Nutrient series, Macronutrients, Volume 1, Carbohydrates, Macronutrients Volume 2, Lipids. Macronutrients Volume 3, Proteins. Micronutrients, vitamins, trace elements, and minerals. Anti-nutrients, the hidden blockers in your food. Phytonutrients, the quiet power of plants. Water, the forgotten fourth, a macronutrient you can't ignore. Other books on health and nutrition. Tuberculosis Briefing Paper, 2nd edition. AZLAN's 5-Powder Manifesto. Eating the Greek Way, how cultural habits support health without trying. Ideology on a Plate, how Robert F. Kennedy Jr. turned U.S. dietary guidelines into a scientific farce. Maslow in 2026, a practical guide to actual needs, not scrollable wishes. These works form part of an ongoing series exploring the chemistry, biological roles, and nutritional significance of bioactive compounds in plant foods. Through his writing, AZLAN advocates a practical food-first approach to nutrition. His work emphasizes whole foods, dietary diversity, and balanced eating patterns, rather than reliance on isolated nutrients or supplements. He holds a Master of Arts in International Business and Management from the University of Westminster in London, and writes extensively on nutrition science, health, and food-based approaches to long-term well-being. AZLAN ADNAN, the quiet revolutionary of real food writing. AZLAN ADNAN, M.A., is a Malaysian polymath who spent decades turning food into philosophy. Raw, unfiltered, no hype. You won't find him pushing superfoods or miracle diets. He dissects what actually works. Whole plants, spices, microbes, and the quiet chemistry that keeps bodies humming. With over 30 books, self-published, shared freely on Z Library, Facebook groups, Telegram channels, AZLAN's output is prolific. Part manifesto, part manual. Early works like Spring Has Sprung, a psychological thriller, and travelogues On the Road to the East Coast reveal his roots in journalism, advertising, and storytelling. But nutrition became his mission. Educated with a Master of Arts in International Business and Management from the University of Westminster, London, he taught at the School of Management, Royal Holloway, London, while pursuing doctoral research in business strategy and environmental management, specializing in the international timber trade. That academic backbone, rigor, systems thinking, sustainability, bleeds into his food writing. No fluff, just evidence. The core series, the Macronutrients Trilogy, Volume 1 on carbohydrates, glucose, fiber, metabolism, Volume 2 on lipids, fats, omega-3s, inflammation, Volume 3 on proteins, repair, enzymes, muscle. Then micronutrients, water, and anti-nutrients, the plant world's double-edged sword. Anti-nutrients are naturally occurring compounds in whole foods, phytates, oxalates, lectins, goitrogens, that can bind minerals, block enzymes, or mess with absorption. They evolved as plant defenses, but in us, they steal iron from spinach, calcium from kale, or spike gut irritation from raw beans. Variety wins. 30 plants a week, not monodiets. Raw's romantic, but cooked smarter. Add spice blends like AZLAN's 5-Powder Manifesto, turmeric mixes for real anti-inflammation, and you've got a library that says, eat wide, not weird. Why release it all into the public domain? Because knowledge isn't currency. It's oxygen. AZLAN watched corporations gatekeep health, paywalls on papers, patented supplements, proprietary blends that hide what works. He refuses. His books aren't for sale. They're for spread. No DRM, no ads, no ego. Just files anyone can download, print, share. He says it plain. If one person in a kampong swaps white rice for brown or steams kailan instead of boiling it, that's the win, not royalties. He's no gatekeeper. His Facebook, AZLAN Green Party, Instagram, and YouTube drop bite-sized truths. Traffic light WFPB guides, eye health talks on lutein, vegan journeys. He credits tradition, curries, forest mushrooms, seaweed from tides, and lives it. Unpeeled carrots, home ferments, no moralizing. 30-plus titles aren't about volume. They're depth. Carbs to phytonutrients, water to gut bugs. AZLAN doesn't sell health. He hands you the tools. Read him and your plate changes. Not because you're broken, because you're built for better. A heartfelt light. To every soul whose hand did give, you've helped me dream, helped me live. In darkest hours your light came through, with hearts so kind, so pure, so true. Your gifts, like stars in deepest night, have steered me gently toward the light. Each coin, each word, each silent prayer, a thread of hope, so rich, so rare. My eyes once dimmed, now seek the skies, and slowly, clearer visions rise. Because of you, I dare to see the world again. It's grace, it's plea. Your compassion's flame will not just stay with me alone. It lights the way for others wandering through despair to feel the warmth of selfless care. You've shown what love in action means, in quiet ways through giving scenes. You've built a bridge from soul to soul and made the broken feel more whole. So let this thanks rise like a song, a melody both soft and strong. May your example gently call more hearts to rise to give. To fall into the joy of lifting pain, of planting hope where none remains. Your kindness walks beside me still, a light, a love, a living will.
subscribe button to show your support. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to show your support.